Welcome back to Logic Basics. We are in the middle of a series on reason and being, and the next few episodes will be discussing arguments, and I'll be giving arguments, and it's in connection to what is eternal. So I want to do this for two reasons. One, we want to see, can reason understand the nature of reality? Can reason get us to what is eternal? I'm at least going to give you an attempt. It's your job to critically analyze to see if the attempt is successful. The second is we want to see what we can do with logic. We want to see what exactly are the tools of logic capable of doing. So I'm going to present you with a series of arguments in the next few episodes, and these arguments can be analyzed in terms of their validity and their soundness. So let me talk about that. This is going to be a future episode, but for right now, let me just say an argument is valid if the premises support the conclusion, if the premises logically support the conclusion. So we want to see, is the argument in good form? And this may be something you have to trust me on until a couple future episodes where we go over validity. The second point is an argument is sound if it is valid, meaning it's in good form, and the premises are true. So this is your job to test these arguments I'm going to present to you and see, are they sound? Are they valid? And I'll just have to give you a rain check on validity and say, okay, this is modus tollens, it's valid. Trust me for now. But soundness is your job. Are the premises true? If you think they are not true, your job is to come up with a counter argument. Coming up with a informal fallacy is not acceptable. Saying that's dumb is not acceptable. Saying I don't like it, that's not acceptable in logic. What is acceptable is saying I believe your minor premise is flawed and here are the reasons why. Okay, so philosophy proceeds through argument and counter argument. It's about reason and logic. It's not about our feelings. You may not like these. You may say, you know what, I don't like that argument, but that's a statement about feelings, not logic. So let's try to think logically and see, let's see where we can go. And you might not like the arguments, but you know what, you can say, at least I had a class where I had a professor who presented arguments, did their best to present an argument and to try to argue that reason can get to being. Okay, so here we go. Being an eternal existence. This is review mostly from some discussions we've had previously on this handout, but we need this refresher now as we get into these arguments. So eternal is without beginning and without end. Minimally, no beginning and no end, always. Remember, eternal means always. Whatever is eternal is independent. It doesn't depend on anything else outside of its existence because it would be the eternal thing if there was something outside of its existence. Eternal is self-existing. It keeps itself going. It's self-maintaining. It is self-explaining. There's nothing outside of eternal to point back at eternal and say, this is the eternal thing. All right, so this is a definition for anything that is eternal, and it's part of the nature of eternal. If you start to think about, okay, if something has no beginning and no end, these are implications that fall out from that. Now, this is something we may have touched on. We're not going to go into depth into this one, but it is a huge topic in metaphysics. Maybe in the 101 class we'll go into more depth, but eternal is not the same as aveternal, and aveternal is eternal in time. Like an eternal creation. Now, this is a very contradictory concept, and it runs into all kinds of problems, like Zeno's paradoxes. So what is eternal is outside of time and is timeless. So time is an aspect of temporal. That's what temporal means, in time. Now, why is this a contradiction? Eternal in time. Eternal is... the corollary concept is infinite. So whatever is eternal is infinite. And what is infinite is indivisible. But time is divisible. So you can't have something that is indivisible, eternal and infinite, and divisible, time. It's a contradiction. And a lot of disputes could be settled by just thinking about that. That's a basic thing to keep in mind. Lots of disputes in the history of philosophy over this. So this could be settled easily if we keep in mind what is the nature of eternal, what is the nature of time. Time is the relationship between finite things in motion, like suns and stars, or finite minds thinking one thought after another. So it's a relationship between finite things. Infinite and eternal is not a relationship between finite things. Okay? Eternal is not temporal, meaning having a beginning, not always. And it's not everlasting, which means it had a beginning but goes on forever. Whatever is eternal is also infinite. It's without limit. Eternal is without limit. Infinite is without limit. So if it's eternal, it's also infinite. And eternal and infinite have properties that are limitless. We'll see that as we go along. There are no unique events for an eternal being or process. Remember this, if it's eternal, no beginning, no end, it can't come into being, that's a one-time event, and it can't go out of existence, that's a one-time event. There can't be an eternal process and then a one-time experience of enlightenment. Either we're always having enlightenment or we never do. Okay, now this is a review. There's one more piece I want to put up to review, and then we'll go into our first argument. So here's one more piece. We talked about the two presuppositions. Either all is eternal or only some is eternal. And these are contradictory positions. They both cannot be true and they both cannot be false. So the way to prove one or the other is by reductio ad absurdum, reducing the opposite to absurdity. Remember, this is Socrates' method, and this is our method. When we talked about what is knowledge, we said knowledge is justified true belief, and strong justification is by reason and argument such that the opposite is impossible. So now we're putting our tools into practice. So we want to see which one of these corners has the weight of reason on its side. And so what we'll do is go through each of these positions and look to see, is it possible that matter is eternal? Is it possible that only spirit exists and spirit is eternal? We already know that matter exists. So this one may already have some red flags given the arguments we've presented. Maybe matter and spirit are co-eternal. Or maybe theism, and what's out of the screen here is deism. I had deism written here. Maybe God is eternal and everything else is temporal. So the series of arguments that we're going to look at are going to explore each of these positions, and these are our logical options in metaphysics. So pay close attention. Let's find out, can reason get us to what is eternal? Ooh, this is going to be so exciting, right?